Hi, I'm Jeremy, founder of Claims Consulting Group. Welcome back to Off Script. Today we have Rob Stewart.
Delighted to be here.
Great, delighted you're here. So, Rob, just to start, tell us who you are, what you do, how long you've been in the business. Bearing in mind that we only have 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's fine, that's fine. So, Rob Stewart, I'm head of sales. I've been in the group coming up to 15 years in September.
Is it really 15
Yeah,
years?
really blown by. Yeah, and during that time I sort of worked in all different parts of the business. What do I do? Business development. So head of sales, my job is all about growth. How do we bring new clients in? How do we explore new ideas? That side of things, basically.
And I've seen you in action at events. So talk me through to to our listeners about the sort of things you'll do at those events and what comes out of them.
Yeah, a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. Going into a room of people you don't know, you have to get quite good at just sort of making conversation and finding reasons to talk to people. And then more recently, been trying to do a little bit more sort of working on my brand, I guess, getting on stage, trying to sort of, I don't know, thought leadership is what you call it. But that's been a really great way to sort of connect with people, get talking to people, and yeah, it's quite a lot's come out of that, to be honest. It's been quite powerful.
And honestly, right, so I have hung out with networkers before, people that work rooms, and it sounds a bit of a cliche, but actually, I don't think I've ever been in a room that can work a room as well as you. And I'm always relieved when you're at these events, because I know you'll be there introducing me to people, and you may never have even met these people, but I'll turn up and stand by you, and then you'll be introducing me to this person you only met 2 minutes ago, and you know all about them. It's quite a skill. I'm quite envious of that, actually. I think I can do it a little bit, but you're pretty much off the chart at it.
Well, what's a better reason to go and talk to someone than to introduce them to someone else, even if you haven't met them, you know? It's about, I'll be honest, our industry is quite small, it's quite incestuous, you know, so it's about understanding who people are and where they are. And if you go to enough of the events, you get enough little tidbits to talk about. So when you have a conversation, you might not really know much about it, but you've got enough to make it look like you know something about it. So.
And you have been up on stage. I know you've done it, and I know you've done it for the business literally last minute. Can you go up and talk about, I don't know, WeatherNet or something with like less than a day's notice? Mate, is that a good thing? Because actually, when I speak on stage, I get, the more time I have, the more nervous I get, and the more sometimes I think maybe just off script.
It is better,
like
100%. Like I'm a procrastinator, so if I know that it's coming up, I think about it, but I won't really do much with it. I know it's coming, and I'll be like, right, I'll do that this afternoon, I won't get it done. Whereas if you're just there, I find it's always easier just get out there and get up on stage and talk and sort of, it's not often that you're left, particularly if you've done enough of it, you're left without words.
Yeah.
So that definitely helps. I've had a few where I've just been drafted in last minute. The probably shortest notice was last year at an event for I Love Claims, where it was on the morning, they started hinting that they might want me on stage, and then about lunchtime they said, all right, you're up next.
That was nothing to do with us, that was I Love Claims.
Well, it was, I Love Claims, so it wasn't, I was there, I was the only person for CCG, and so they wanted us on stage. So
that's great. And there is nothing better, in my opinion, about personal brand than standing up and speaking.
Yeah, you can do as much as you like on LinkedIn, and you'll get traction. Yeah. And LinkedIn's hit and miss because you have to do enough of it. If you don't do regular content, you drop down the list, you don't get the engagement, you can see that. Whereas if you get up on stage, you've got an audience of 300-400 people sometimes, and they're all like, since that event, I've met people and they said, oh yeah, I saw you at that event. And I was like, oh, okay, like I didn't even know they were there.
And I don't know if you found this, but actually you can tell how successful your talk's been by actually the amount of people that then link in afterwards that just, you know, were there at the event, which I always, it's kind of a nice feeling, right?
Yeah, it's great for the ego. And my tactic was always after an event, if I hadn't seen people, you've got a list of who's been there or you've seen who's been there. So you get to write to them and say, oh, sorry, I missed you. It works really well. And actually, if you've been on stage, you say, oh, sorry, I missed you. You kind of say, I was on stage. And I found that off the back of that, you get a bit more engagement as well because people want to talk to you about it. So, yeah, it's good.
Well, 15 years, that's, I can say this with confidence, it's just 2 years behind Matt, and I say that with confidence because he was a couple of episodes ago explaining how long he'd been here for. So, obviously in this industry, we're in it for life, but very often a lot of us didn't start off thinking about that's the industry you wanted to go into. It might be different with yourself, I don't know. So...
No. The same as everyone. You sort of say, how did you end up in insurance? It kind of, you blinked and suddenly you've got a career in it. It's kind of, everyone falls into it, I think. What did I want to be? I don't know. I had a conversation with someone before coming on here, actually. And they said, what do you want to be when you're a kid? And I couldn't really remember. And the sort of vague memories of maybe wanting to be a vet or something when I was sort of 7 or 8. And then realised that was too much hard work. So sort of drifted through school and college and sort of took not an interest. I was never the person who tried the hardest, but law just came to me quite naturally. Yeah. So I went into my first exam, got really good results with very little preparation. It just kind of made sense. So I kind of originally wanted to maybe do something in law. I was probably a bit anti-corporate at the time, so I didn't really want to go into the bits where there was money, so business and commercial, just because it sounded a bit boring. I really like criminal law, so I thought, maybe I'll do something in criminal law, but that's kind of quite tricky to get into, quite costly to get into with not particularly great rewards. So then I said, well, actually, I like law as a subject, so maybe I'll go down the route of teaching law at higher education. So got my law degree at university.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so graduated 2009, so it would have been July 2009. Looked up, found out that Bristol University would do the course that I needed. They do it part-time via Yeovil College. Brilliant. I can do just need a job to help pay the bills while I do that. And that was as I walked in the door.
Okay, so we were the...
you were the temporary job.
The temporary job.
Went into the old tech team at the time.
Was it tech and then PCD?
Tech team for about a year. Yeah. So my first job, I really enjoyed it actually.
Remind me who was in the tech team then, can you remember?
So Matt Brady was still technically the technical manager. Even though he's out in the field.
I love that.
Paul Egger was my boss. Yeah. And then I had my seniors at the time were Abby Hoy, who's still with us, Chris Evans, Dave Mould.
Right,
so,
wow, okay.
Yeah, some old
Amazing.
names. Yeah, it was a really great team feel as well. It was a great first grounding into insurance, because I got to learn insurance, but I had a bit of construction background, just did a few summers working on the building site. So the tech side of it worked quite well. I could understand it. And my first job was phoning up the builders with the red pen saying, "Well, you've asked for 4 kitchen units. There's only 3," and that. Yeah, so it was a really good job and taught me a lot actually.
That's really good. And what I'm already enjoying about doing these shows is that straight away I can link you with Matt. Yeah, because his answer was he wanted to be a barrister.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
So. There could be a little side hustle you two.
Yeah, maybe we should look into it,
yeah. So we talked about the past, we've talked about the present. What about over the next year, the next few years, either personally or at work? What does good look like for you? What are you striving in, as I say, in personal or work?
I think they're probably a bit combined. I think one thing for me, I talked about it a bit earlier about wanting to sort of raise my profile in the industry, and I think it's something that obviously benefits me, but it greatly benefits the business as well. So I think for me, it's about working on my brand a little bit, being a bit more disciplined, I guess you'd probably say, with LinkedIn and things like that, because you have to have that engagement and that content there. Who knows, this could be the start of it. Hey, I could do a bit of promotion around this, and it might help get my name out there a little bit. But yeah, I think so. I'd like to get a bit more involved in some events, and it's just on me really to sort of reach out and offer and sort of say, can I host a session or something, one of these tech events or something, those sorts of things. And I think off the back of that, I guess professionally, I'd like obviously to help CCG keep growing. You know, we've got some great wins come over the line this year, or over the last few years. I'd like to keep more coming through the door. And then personally, it's about finding the right balance, so I get lots of time with the kids and do the right things with the kids. So
yeah, definitely. You're a young family.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about sort of balancing that. And to be honest, I've got really good balance at the moment. I feel that's nailed, so I want to just make sure I continue.
That's great to hear, because that is definitely that can be a reoccurring challenge. But with the young children, then that's really important. 100%.
And I'm quite fortunate, I'll be honest, Jeremy, like you've gone through that with your young kids working as well, and you've fostered an environment that really allows that. You know, it swings and roundabouts, I'd like to say. You know, sometimes I might have 4 days away on the road and I might be working late on a tender or an RFI, but you know what, if I want to finish at Friday at 3 o'clock to go and spend some time with kids, I'll do that, you know. Like, I know that as long as I'm getting my work done, it's not a problem. So.
That's amazing, because that's exactly the environment that we want to foster. So I'm pleased that's coming across.
And there's a real reason why you're interviewing people and they're saying they've been here 10 years, 15 years, 17 years or whatever. It's because of that, isn't there? I do think there's not many businesses, when you look at it, how many sort of long-termers, like I mentioned some people earlier and they're still here. So,
and also one of the things that I'm super excited about is also to chat to people that haven't been here that long. Because as a founder of a business, you know, there was once a time where, you know, I knew not only everyone's name, I knew their partner's name, I knew their kids' names. And, you know, as we've gone multi-sited and we've grown the business, I suppose it's been a bit of a frustration for me and a bit of a sadness where that's kind of disappeared. So having the ability just to not just chat with, you know, people like you that have been in the business for a long time, but also chat with people that have just started or only been here for a short amount of time, feels, from a selfish perspective, feels great. Really enjoying it.
Definitely.
Right, so we've got 2 more questions, one of which is, hopefully you were asked to think of a question. Throw it at me, I don't know what it is.
So,
I don't know. This is the thing. I kind of think with anyone new, it's easier, right? I think they're gonna. I'm slightly nervous about people that know me.
No. I've been quite sensible. So you've obviously had a long and distinguished career in business. You know, you've been very successful with what you've grown and what you've built. In that time, you must have had some insults over the years.
Insults?
Yeah, insults. What's the sort of, what insult have you had over those years that you're most proud of?
Oh my gosh, that is a really good question, and I definitely need some time to think about it, because there have been many insults. So, whilst this isn't an insult, let me tell you a story of a woman that was screaming at me and that I think pretty much wanted my head. So a long time ago when I did repossessions, I'd literally, before I was in the insurance industry, I'd moved down to Somerset, and this was one of my first few jobs. And this building society said, right, if you go to this woman's house, the locks have already been changed. What we want you to do is cut down the garden, make it neat, and that's it. But it's quite a large garden. And this is the address. So I turn up to the property, it's pouring with rain, and I'm looking at this garden. It's definitely the right address. I'm looking at this garden, and whilst it's overgrown, there's a certain chicness to it. And I'm like, this feels good the way it is, right? Bearing in mind, I'm also not a horticulturalist or a gardener, but there I am with my hired strimmer and my hedge cutter, and I look at these clearly really well cultivated growing bushes, and the instructions are cut them down. So I spend the weekend in the pouring rain on my own, if I'm honest, not totally knowing what I'm doing, just giving everything a haircut, bringing it down military style, short, neat, tidy. And as I start to pack up the goods, at the end, this woman comes running out her house, having been away for the weekend, shouting at me, saying, "Oh my God, what have you done to my garden? I can't believe it. You've destroyed it. I've been growing this for years." And it turns out what the building society forgot to tell me was that the houses didn't line up with the gardens. So the house that got repossessed was the garden next door, right?
Which I presume was overgrown and a real mess.
So they literally didn't line up. And she was already moaning at me, "Oh my God, the locksmiths came and they changed my garage and they shouldn't have done it. And now you've done this." So it wasn't my fault. And the builder decided to take full responsibility. But the names that I was being called was probably one of the largest insults. So.
Yes, fair enough. No, I just can't even imagine what that would have been like.
There's probably a few more, but I won't go there. I need to
enough.
think about what they are. And now, so we've got a question here, which I haven't looked at. I'm going to read out. I've got no idea what it says. The production team have put this together. Right. What's the last thing you watched on TV, and why did you choose to watch it? Well, I mean, I know what mine is, but...
Yeah, well, it's the last thing I watched. There was two things I watched last night. So I watched the last episode of Shogun.
Oh, really?
Which is really good. If you get the chance, it's kind of Game of Thrones, but Japanese, feudal Japan. It's really well done, really well worth a watch.
Yeah, my friends
Definitely
told me about that.
on Disney.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, me and the other half watched episode 4 of Clarkson Farm. So,
Oh, okay. I haven't seen any of that.
Also very good.
So I haven't watched TV for a while, actually. I've been really busy, but also into audiobooks at the moment, so listening to audiobooks. But the last thing I watched was recorded, and I've now got, everyone who knows me knows that I'm a massive martial arts fan. So the last thing I watched was a UFC event, and it was UFC 300. And if anyone doesn't know what UFC is, it's mixed martial arts. What people might call cage fighting, but it's in an octagon. And I saw one of the most unbelievable fights I've ever seen. And it was a guy called Max Holloway, who, if anyone knows, is like just one of the all-time greatest, against a really lethal fighter called Justin Gaethje. And they were fighting for a really random belt called, what's it called? BMF. And it's a belt that they randomly made up a couple of years ago, and it stands for baddest mother. Right.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a cliche, and it sounds a bit WWE, but this fight, so it went 5 rounds. It was 5-minute rounds. And Holloway, who's fighting one of the most dangerous fighters in the UFC, was absolutely beating him on every round. So it was a clear victory. And in the last 10 seconds, he wanted the knockout, even though he was winning. And he told Justin Gaethje, he pointed to the centre of the ground and said, right, let's have it in the centre. Obviously, Justin Gaethje is a great fighter, and he's not going to say no, because it's the only way he can chance to win.
Yeah.
And Holloway did the most phenomenal knockout with, not kidding, 1 second left. And it was truly one of the most awe-inspiring fights I have seen. And if any MMA fighter, anyone enjoys martial arts, they need to see that fight.
Okay. Good. Was that so? It wasn't a replay. It was live or thereabouts.
Yeah. It's fantastic. But, I could go off on martial arts and whole different tangent. Yeah. Anyway, that's great. Thanks, Rob, for coming on our show.
No worries. Thanks for having me.